Go, Fritz.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
The Bears. The Bears.
I am the great Cornholio.
We'll see what happens.
Playoffs?
See, Sean McDonough, Jay Billis. Goats!
Can you play a song? Something cool. Put my mic on!
I'm calling both games.
Oh, baby!
Are you serious?
Goes down the field for Smith.
Oh, he got it!
Seattle. We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
Because last night, that Ravens game, this is one of those times where the whole no cursing on the air rule with WIXQ really, really tests me. Because what in the world was that last night? I mean, what was that? I have never seen a team play so bad and be so unprepared and play so lazy. Like, it was just absolutely ridiculous how bad they were. It was just absolutely dreadful. Absolutely. I mean, there's no excuse for how bad they played, the Ravens. And so I'm just going to kind of get right into it, because the Ravens, like, I mean, it was so bad. I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start. It was that bad. You know, I guess we'll just take a look at the stats first. So the Dolphins win 22-10, give the Ravens their third loss of the year. And Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, 26 of 43, 238 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Rushing for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson led the Ravens in rushing with 39 yards on 9 carries. Devontae Freeman had 10 carries for 35 yards. Devin Duvernay, 1 carry for 19 yards. And Le'Veon Bell had 3 carries for 1 yard. Le'Veon Bell. That's the guy that we keep handing the ball off to. And he had 1 yard on 3 carries. Absolutely ridiculous. Receiving. Rashad Bateman led the Ravens with receptions with 6 receptions for 80 yards. Mark Andrews, 6 receptions, 63 yards, 1 touchdown. And Hollywood Brown, the beloved Hollywood Brown that everybody thinks and sees so much more than what I see and what everybody else that I talk to sees, other than, you know, I don't know, there are people out there that see things in Hollywood Brown that I don't see, my friends don't see, my family doesn't see, everybody that I've met that has a brain doesn't see. Hollywood Brown, 6 receptions for 37 yards. He had some plays where it got on my nerves. We'll get to that later. Devin Duvernay, 4 receptions, 28 yards. Devontae Freeman, 3 receptions for 23 yards. And Sammy Watkins had 1 for 7 yards as well. For the Dolphins, so Jacoby Brissett started the game for Miami. He went 11 of 23 for 156 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. However, he went down with an injury, and so Tua Tagovailoa came in, who was supposedly hurt, and he came out and looked better than he did when he was, quote, healthy. He was 8 for 13, 158 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Miami's rushing. Myles Gaskin led the way, 14 carries, 31 yards. Albert Wilson chipped in with 2 rushes for 19 yards as well. And Miami receiving, Albert Wilson, 4 receptions, 87 yards. Isaiah Ford, 4 receptions, 84 yards. And Jalen Waddle, 4 receptions for 61 yards as well. Those were the leaders. So back to the Ravens. And in the past, when I've talked about the Ravens, I've tried to keep my being a fan out of things. That's out the window today. Just forget about it. Forget about it. We're just going to throw that out the window today. Because the Ravens, like, we looked atrocious. And that's not even the word for it. Like, I don't think there's a word in the dictionary to describe how bad and how poorly we played last night. And so I'm just going to start off with, let's start with the offense, okay? So everybody knows the deal with the running backs, right? We have no running backs. We have like 4 guys go down, whatever. Everybody knows the story. So we signed Latavius Murray. He hasn't played in 3 weeks. He's hurt or whatever. And for whatever reason, in the past couple weeks, it's been between Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell. As I mentioned, Le'Veon Bell had 3 carries for 1 yard, last night. Devontae Freeman had 10 carries for 35 yards. Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman, I am what's the word for it? Like, those guys, I'm just like, those guys are the two slowest guys on the planet, and we keep handing the ball off to them. I don't get it. We have the most mobile quarterback in the history of the NFL, and he only had 9 carries last night. If Devontae Freeman has more carries than Lamar Jackson, that's a problem. Okay? That's a problem. Especially when you're playing the Miami Dolphins of all teams. So that's an issue. And by the way, whatever happened to Tyson Williams? Right? He literally, and I mean this, and this is not a joke. However, I mean, it kind of is funny when you think about it. But this is literal. This is seriously and most literally true. This is a fact. Tyson Williams is the longest tenured running back, like, you know, most experienced, like, with the Ravens, like, on the team. He's been with the Ravens the longest out of any of the running backs on the team. And yet he hasn't played since week 3 or week 4. I don't know. Whenever we brought up Le'Veon Bell off the practice squad and sat Tyson Williams, that's the last I've seen of Tyson Williams. So, and from the first 3 weeks or whatever when he played, he didn't look all that bad for what we had, for what the Ravens had. And, like, I don't know if he's got some kind of mental thing going on. I don't know if it's, you know, he doesn't try hard in practice. I don't know what I don't know if he slept with John Harbaugh's wife or something. Like, I don't know what it is. But when you keep handing the ball off to Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell, and they get 3 yards a carry if they're lucky, like, it's time to switch things up, okay? Because when you hand the ball off to Devontae Freeman, the defense doesn't have to try very hard to stop you. So, I mean, I get it. Maybe Tyson Williams isn't the best running back in the world. I'm not saying he is. But it can't be any worse than what Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell have been doing the past 2 or 3 weeks. It can't be. It most literally cannot be any worse. Give the kid a shot. Our running game, the run game is what the Ravens are built on. That is what the Ravens have, that's their pride and joy. That is what they you know, that's what they do. They, over, like, historically, the Ravens use the run game to open up the pass game, and that's the bread and butter. That is the foundation in which we go out and play football. And when you have 3 running backs go down to injury, you just have to work with what you have. And when you have Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell and they can't do anything, like, mix things up. Give Tyson Williams a shot. Give him a chance. What's the worst that can happen? He's just as bad as Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell? So be it. We're already at the ground, right? We can only go up. So that's just really ridiculous. The play calling is ridiculous. And I've not been a fan of Greg Roman since day one. But last night was an all-time low. Last night was an all-time great one for just, like, how bad it was. Last night was probably the worst called game I've ever seen from Greg Roman. It was the most unimaginative, uncreative, lazy, unprepared, lame game plan I've ever seen. I can't wrap my head around how bad that game was from Greg Roman. There was 2 times on the early stages of the game where it's 3rd and 9 or longer, and we threw a screenplay. All right, Sean, fine. You do it the first time. It didn't work the first time. So then it's 3rd and long again, and they try it again, and it gets stopped again. What are we doing? We have... I can't wrap my head around it. There are no words to describe how bad that was last night. And the Ravens didn't score a touchdown until the 4th quarter against one of the worst teams in the league. You know, as I mentioned, Rashad Bateman had 6 catches for 80 yards. Most of those came after the game was already over and decided. Rashad Bateman, as far as I'm concerned, out of wide receivers, right? Mark Andrews is a tight end. Yes, he's really good. Rashad Bateman, as far as I'm concerned, is the best wide receiver the Ravens have, and yet they don't get in the ball. We throw the ball to Hollywood Brown, who he's good enough to get you, you know, some yards and whatever, and, you know, he's like, Hollywood Brown's not elite, but Hollywood Brown is not awful. right? He's fine. He's good. He's all right. But last night there were plenty of times where Hollywood Brown didn't track the ball. You know, he was same stuff, different game, right? Usual suspects from Hollywood Brown. We know the story. He wasn't tracking the ball, wasn't really, whatever. We get it. 6 catches for 37 yards, like, okay, the stats weren't there for Hollywood Brown. So if that's your argument as to why he's elite the stats, okay, that game, no. You can't tell me 6 catches for 37 yards is good. All right, get real. Rashad Bateman, though, let's get him the ball more. He's literally our best wide receiver on the team. Sammy Watkins, we need to drop him. I don't know. It looked good on paper, the signing. It just hasn't worked out. Move on. Get Duvernay and James Prochet more opportunities, because Sammy Watkins just isn't it. I don't care what he did with Kansas City. I don't care what he did with Buffalo. I don't care what he did at Clemson. I don't care. He's not working out here in Baltimore. End of story. That guy, it's done. The Sammy Watkins experiment needs to be over, as far as I'm concerned. Give the ball to Rashad Bateman more. I don't get it. And for, Devontae Freeman, the guy gets on my nerves. And here's the thing. I don't want to be misunderstood on my thoughts on Freeman and Bell. I understand that Freeman and Bell are slow. There's nothing they can do about it, right? It's not their fault that they're slow. It's just the way it is, right? So I'm not, I'm just saying, they're slow, so why do we keep giving them the ball? They can't do anything, and it's not their fault. I mean, we're working with what we got, sure, and sure, they're slow. It's not really their fault. But so if that's the case, why do we keep giving them the ball? Right? I mean, we had Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, Devin Duvernay, and Sammy Watkins, right? Whether Sammy Watkins is good or not, he's good enough to maybe throw him a few times, right? He just didn't have a good game last night. Again, I'm not a huge fan of him. I think that needs to be over. But anyway, all those guys were active last night, and we keep throwing the ball to Devontae Freeman. Stop it. Enough. Stop throwing the ball to Devontae Freeman. The guy is slow enough as a running back. We don't need to throw him the ball. We throw him the ball on a screenplay, and it's a loss of 5 yards, almost automatically, because the guy can't move. And, Sammy Watkins, he had to, kind of gave up on the play in the end zone. He fumbled the ball. It just, nothing was going the Ravens' way last night. And, I mean, things are going to happen like this. Nobody's perfect. I understand that everybody makes mistakes. But when, anybody's going to make mistakes, whether you win by 50 or lose by 10, it doesn't matter. But when the play calling is as bad as it was last night, those mistakes just make things, things worse. I mean, that's how it is. And it's bad. It's just really, really bad. And how about on the defensive side of things? Well, actually, first on the offense. Last thing on offense. The Dolphins blitzed us, I think, every play last night. And yet, Greg Roman up in the press box couldn't figure it out to save his life. They're blitzing every play, and yet we couldn't come up with anything to counter a blitz. We couldn't counter the blitz to save our lives last night. And it was just... And I understand maybe, you're struggling against a team that's really good and they're really good with the blitz and all that. This was the Miami Dolphins who were crying out loud. They got lucky in a Week 1 win against a Patriots team that didn't have an identity yet, and then they beat the Texans last week. The Dolphins stink, and they beat us by 12. It's unexcusable. They blitzed us every play because that's all they have, and we couldn't figure it out. We got the most mobile quarterback in NFL history, and we're having him stay in the pocket. Get out of the flipping pocket. Draw some plays up for the kid. Lamar Jackson's just going out there being, doing what he's told to do. He's trying his hardest with what he's got. And I mean, sure, some throws weren't great, but here's the thing. Before people harp on him for bad throws, the kid's being pressured every stinking time. He's not going to throw it on a dime every time. That's what you got to understand. Throws are not going to be perfect when he's being, when he's running for his life every time, or if he's in the pocket, he's getting rushed every time. He doesn't have, the offensive line is like a turnstile. It's unbelievable. It's like a screen door. It's ridiculous. Lamar Jackson has no time in the pocket. He has no time, to make any decisions, and I'm just impressed that he's made throws that he's made. You put any other quarterback in the system other than Joe Burrow and a select few other quarterbacks, the Ravens would be like 0-10 or whatever, 0-7, 0-9, whatever the number is. I don't even care what the number is right now. Ravens fans should be like content with what Lamar Jackson has done, because with the amount of time that he's had in the pocket, nobody is gonna have any time to make decisions. Like, the fact that he's been able to do what he's done is remarkable, because he's had no time in the pocket. He's been running for his life when he gets out of the pocket. Like, the man has no protection. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten hurt yet. And so, like, the Lamar Jackson slander needs to stop, because that's such a classic thing for Ravens fans to do. They did it under Flacco. Whenever we would lose, it didn't matter what the reason was. It would be, it's Flacco. It's Flacco. It was a classic thing from Ravens fans that watch the game when they're on 5 beers or more, and they don't watch the game. So before you come out of your hole to slander Lamar Jackson, watch the game, dissect the game, and stop. Don't be that guy. Everybody had a bad night, Jackson included, but it wasn't all on him. We have the guy with no brain in the box upstairs who can't call a good play to save his life. I mean, it was just dreadful on all accounts last night. John Harbaugh needs to put Tyson Williams in more plays. He's got to do better. I mean, we burned all our timeouts before the 2-minute warning in the second half. John Harbaugh's time management is among the worst in the NFL. And let's get to our defense. What in the world are we thinking on defense? I said I think the Miami Dolphins blitzed every play. Well, they did because it worked for them. The Ravens blitzed every play, and the Dolphins were figuring it out, and we didn't do anything different. When you blitz on every play, and here's the thing about blitzing on every play. Marlon Humphrey and the secondary have not had the best year, and Humphrey's kind of like had to be that leader or whatever. Like, he's the guy that people look at and say, wow, he's really good. And, he's the X factor. And without Marcus Peters, of course. And when you blitz on every play and you're putting your secondary out on an island, like, they're not going to come up with the big play every single time. It's just not going to happen. That's just how things work. You have to mix more coverage plays and zone and man, and you cannot run a cover 0 blitz every time and hope that Marlon Humphrey and Anthony Averett and Geno Stone and Brandon Stevens come up with big plays every time. It's Chuck Clark too. It's just not going to happen. And people put a lot on Patrick Queen. The kid's in his second year? He's not going to be an all-star middle linebacker yet. Give the kid some slack. And sure, Calais Campbell is supposed to be, the big guy up front, and Justin Houston as well. But when you blitz every play, by the time we get to the second half, those guys are going to be shot. Those guys are going to be tired. You can't blitz every play. You just can't. Especially when the other team's figuring it out. I mean, we made Jacoby Brissett and Tua Tagovailoa look like Tom Brady out there. I mean, they were just carving us up. And that is unexcusable to let the Dolphins carve you up like that. And I understand the injuries don't help things for the Ravens. They've got like 1 million guys on injured reserve. But, like, you look at what we have left. Like, on offense, we've got Lamar Jackson. We've got Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, Rashad Bateman, Duvernay. Like, we have talent. And yet Greg Roman doesn't know how to use it. Greg Roman doesn't know what's going on up there. He's more worried about the McDonald's menu. And on defense, like, we have good guys. Marlon Humphrey, he's had a iffy season. Patrick Queen is young, he's getting better. Josh Bynes has had really good games this year. Anthony Averett has shown, flashes of being good. Odafe Owe has played really well in his rookie season. Calais Campbell and Justin Houston have had their moments. Tavon Young I'm not a big fan of him, but he's come up big in some instances. Chuck Clark has been, good as well, but so that's my point. Like, it's not like we're throwing out our third string guys and saying, hey, good luck, and then they don't play well. And it's like, well, that's kind of what you have. Like, although we have 1 million guys on injured reserve, we still have decent guys left. And this is, and people will say, this is only one game. No, it's not. This is the whole season. Look at the Ravens schedule. Week 1, We had the Raiders game finished, but we couldn't finish the deal. Like, we had it, but we couldn't finish the deal. The Chiefs game, Lamar Jackson leads us to a good comeback because our defense punches the ball out from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Maybe we got lucky. I don't know. The Lions game, we got extremely lucky. Lamar Jackson throws a pass down the field, gets Justin Tucker in perfect field position or whatever to make the NFL record. We got lucky. The Broncos stink. We were able to win that game. The Colts, we were down by like 25-10 or something like that. Like, we were down big, 22-10, I think it was, 22-3. We were down huge. The point is, that was against the Colts. The Colts aren't very good. Lamar Jackson had to come back and, he threw for like, 500 yards or whatever. The Chargers game. The Chargers had an off game. So what? We won that one. That was great. The Bengals. We got absolutely demolished by the Bengals. We fell behind and we couldn't come back. We couldn't do what the Ravens have done all year. The Vikings. We looked terrible in the first half against the Vikings, but second half we've somehow managed to pull another win out of our butt. We managed to just pluck it out of thin air yet again. And then last night, the same thing. We fall behind early, and this time we got caught, just like the Bengals game. We fall behind early, and we can't pluck one out of thin air. And that's my point. The Ravens stink this year. They're lucky to be 6-3. Without Lamar Jackson and a few other pieces, the Ravens might be winless this season. They might be 2-7, 2-8. And looking at the schedule, Ravens got the Bears, who I'm not confident about any game anymore. We got the Bears, then we got the Browns on Sunday Night Football, at the Steelers, at the Browns. I mean, we might lose all three of those games. We might lose 3 or 4. Then we play the Packers, that's going to be a loss. At the Bengals, that might be a loss. Against the Rams, and then against the Steelers. I don't know if we're going to win 3 games. And I mean, the Ravens just looked absolutely dreadful last night, and it was a continuation of what we've seen all season from them. And they have talent, but the uncreative, unimaginative, lazy, unprepared, just overall, like, atrocious, lame, like all the words in the dictionary that mean bad, throw at the Ravens and their play calling. Because when you get absolutely owned by the Miami Dolphins, I don't know where to go. And that's what happened last night. The Ravens got shown up by one of the worst teams in the league. And I mean that there has to be some real soul searching on this team after that game, because that was awful. That was without a doubt the worst, most unprepared, lazy Ravens game I've ever seen. That was dreadful. And the Ravens and everybody else on the team and everybody else involved with the team should be ashamed, because that was just absolutely, like, again, there's no word in the dictionary that means, like, that just shows how bad that game was. It's one thing if you do that against a real team, like a good team, but I mean the Miami Dolphins, for crying out loud. That's the team that you just got absolutely embarrassed by. And now this is now 2 out of the last 3 games that the Ravens have been embarrassed. And I guess you could say 2.5 games if you want to include the first half of the Vikings game, because that was just ridiculous as well. But Greg Roman needs to just do his job and come up with something better than the garbage that he's running out there. The sad excuse for a game plan that he has this year, because it is just, it's ridiculous. It's bad. It's terrible. And the Ravens just, I get it. The injuries don't help things. You know what? But hey, boo-hoo, cry me a river. Figure it out. That's what you're getting paid to do. And if the Ravens have been able to beat the Chiefs, the Lions, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Colts, the Vikings, whether it's a magic comeback or not, you've been able to get the job done. You got it done against those teams. You at least should be able to beat the Dolphins. And they can't even do that. And Like, you look at the teams that have been able to handle the Dolphins, and been able to handle the Colts, and been able to handle the Broncos, and been able to handle the Lions and the Chiefs, and then you look at our schedule and say, wow, the Ravens barely beat those teams. That really shows you just how bad we are. And, I understand the comebacks are great, but as I've been saying this all season, we are going to come up against a team that we just don't have we're not going to be able to do the comeback. We're not going to be able to pluck the comeback out of thin air. Now, I didn't think it was going to be against the Miami Dolphins. I thought it was going to be against, say, the Packers, the Rams, the Steelers, the Bengals, something like that. And it happened against the Bengals. But for it to happen against the Miami Dolphins is, again, that was without a doubt the worst Ravens game I've ever